Hello, coaches. Welcome to the Modern Soccer Coach podcast. We've got Damon Shaw joining us today. Damon's worked at the professional level in futsal in England, Malta, Spain, Malaysia. He's also worked as an analyst for the Solomon Islands in the recent Futsal World Cup. Amazing journey in the game, brilliant insight into some specific futsal topics. Really enjoyed this chat. Also, the new book, Modern Soccer Coach Detail, is now available. Ships to the US, Europe, Australia, and if you enjoy the podcast and you want to read more and support the work, please order the book now, modernsoccercoach.com/shop. Here's Damon. Enjoy. Damon, welcome to the Modern Soccer Coach podcast. Really excited to have you on finally.
Brilliant. Thank you for the invitation. Thanks for having me. And yeah, it's an honor to be on this podcast with you.
I feel we've known each other a long time. Just with I was thinking about this the other day. You're one of the old guard in the social media from back in the day, and it kind of ties in with the first question. Like I always remember, like you were, when I thought of futsal, I thought of your work and your messaging, and you were promoting it long before it's kind of gone mainstream now. So take us back to those early days. Like what was it that got you into futsal? Like what got you hooked?
I remember, and I was there the other day, actually. I was up in Middlesbrough, and I remember the first time I got hold of a couple of futsal balls and took them into the sports hall. We didn't have goals, but I just remember having a kickabout with my friend Ollie, and it was different, man. It was different to football. I was like, these balls are like, they're so good to play with. It's easier for a start. People talk about it being harder, which makes you a better player, but it's not the balls that make it harder. The balls are actually easy to control, easy to play with. You can get it under control quicker and give you more time compared to a football to decide what to do next. And yeah, I think coupled with the balls, the game I loved when I first saw it. But then coupled with the opportunities that I saw in futsal, like I found the competition. And I worked it out. If we won 13 games in a row, we would be playing in the European Cup. It wasn't that simple. You've obviously got other teams trying to do the same thing, but the pathway to the European Cup at that time was not easy, because it's not easy, but it was reachable. It was attainable. So I saw the opportunity and I thought, well, if I start a club up here now and build something and put the foundations down, who knows, within a few years we could be competing at the top. And so yeah, the opportunity and the game and everything just hooked me straight away when I got involved up at Teesside University.
We've had Simon Clifford on the podcast, and I read that he was an influence early. Like, did you go to any of his? Did you work alongside him, or what was his role in that?
No, so funny story actually with me and Simon. I was quite critical. I don't know if social media was about then, but maybe it was on a forum, and I was quite critical of FDS and futsal. And there was always a bit of there was a bit of a Football Disallowed came what Simon brought over and used it to coach kids and create a brilliant program. I didn't see that as the same as futsal, and there was always this little bit of conflict between what they both were. One was a training tool, one was a sport, one was the original, one was just for the money, taken over by FIFA, and the rules changed. And so I can't remember the exact sort of argument. It wasn't with Simon personally. It was, I think I wrote a story or an article or something, and one of his staff got in touch with me and said, look, this isn't true. And anyway, so we had that bit of a rough start to our relationship, but then later on we spoke, and we became good friends after that. And yeah, like it's been a big influence on me personally. And as a coach, I don't know, because I've not really worked with him in that sense, but certainly personally, and talking about ambition and life goals and things like that, he's always been an influence on my career. And when we speak, he's always got really, really sort of deep deep things to say, and I could do with speaking to him again actually in the near future, because I perhaps need a bit of a motivation. So yeah, Simon, good friend now, and yeah, really big influence on my career, certainly.
Yeah, I was talking to someone about this quite recently about like what I was one of my favorite interviews, and I remember the football de Salo growing up, and I was a big Brazilian fan, so I wanted to get him on. But one of the things that jumped out to me, and it's one of the things that have jumped about other coaches that have impacted me on the podcast, is that we talk a lot about being open minded, but there's some people that are almost close, like we're open minded to certain things, but are so focused on what they believe and passionate about it. I almost think that as coaches today, there's too many that are open minded because they float between ideas.
Yeah.
But Simon knew what he stands or knows what he stands for, what he wants, and to me, that's almost refreshing today.
Yeah, and he's right. Like the methods and the tools he brought over from Brazil, and I think the big difference was the smaller balls. So with football de Salao, the balls are smaller and heavier, and even in Spain, they don't use the balls that are so small. And the people in Spain say, well, in Brazil they're better. They're better at shooting, better at dribbling because of those using the size 1, size 2 balls. Whereas in Spain, they only use size 3 and size 4, even at the younger stages. So they're quite certainly in awe of what the Brazilians do. And that's exactly what Simon brought over to England, and reduce the size of the ball, the weight of the ball, and yeah, there's absolutely you can't doubt what his training methods achieved, and yeah, certainly futsal does give a little bit of that even now, even though it's balls are slightly different, but the smaller space and smaller ball, it's always important, isn't it?
There's no doubt that there's been a massive growth in the game around the world, but I've seen it in England just with on social media. I've also experienced it here in the US. It's more conversations. The one thing I want to ask you was over the last 5 years, you see like the Ronaldinhos, Ronaldos, Juninhos, they're saying about how it impacted them and helped them growing up. When do you think that we're going to get an English player or a British player that's going to say the same thing? Do you think we're at that stage yet?
We've had a few, and I think there was a guy called Will Hughes who said he played a bit of futsal, like he played futsal growing up, and it's helped him. But now I don't know his story, so I can't say for sure whether this is true or not, but I don't think he's played futsal to the extent of what Spanish players and Brazilian players have played futsal. All I can imagine from my experience in the English game is he played a few winters, or he played once a week. And yeah, I'm sure it's helped him, but I don't think it's helped him to the extent that it's shaped Brazilian and Spanish and Portuguese players. And we've got another story with Max Kilman at the moment in the Premier League, and yeah, he did both futsal, but he only started futsal at 16. Oh, wow. So he said it himself that it's helped him, and I've no doubt about that. But I don't think it's helped him to the extent that it's helped develop players like Iniesta, Messi, those sorts of players. So when will we have a player that I think you can compare to the likes of the Brazilian and Spanish? I don't know, because even now, all over England, there's no kids that are playing 2 or 3 times a week doing futsal and playing a competition, a match at the weekends. I just don't think it exists. It doesn't exist in England. So I don't know if we'll ever have the same futsal influence as places like Brazil and Spain. And England's different. We shouldn't try and be Spain or Brazil. We should do things our way, but futsal definitely will help. Even if the kids are doing it once a week, it's definitely going to be beneficial for them. So yeah, I think Max is probably the one at the moment that's saying, he's come through the futsal setup. Is an England international, so if he actually gets an England cap for England, for Gareth Southgate's team, then he'll be in a club of very few players that have played for both as well. So he's different. He's done futsal, he's done football all through his life. But yeah, it's definitely influenced him. So maybe Max is probably the one at the moment that we can use, that we can say.
Is is it almost going to be, if someone starts off, say Max starts off playing futsal, falls in love with futsal, wants to play futsal, is there a problem in England or a challenge in England with futsal? Is that the moment that he starts excelling in that, he's going to get pulled out of that and going into, because people are going to say, right, we'll play for our team and play for our club on a Sunday and a Saturday. Is that an issue?
Well, it happened. He was an England international, playing in the FA Futsal National League, playing for England, and then he got signed by Wolves, and he couldn't then do both. So,
oh wow!
So, I mean, he didn't get. Oh no, there is a story, and I don't know how true it is, but he got noticed at an England futsal camp, I think, by a Wolves scout or coach, and then they obviously carried on scouting him when he was at Maidenhead. So yeah, he loved futsal, and I don't think he was ever going to choose futsal over football because of his potential, and obviously now he's at Wolves and Premier League established player. So I don't think he would ever, even though he loved futsal, I don't think he was ever going to stay in it. And so yeah, he got drawn away by football, but it happens at all levels as well. Even when I was at Middlesbrough, we had players that they might earn £200 a month or something, or £100 a game playing Sunday League, and they love futsal, but they just couldn't commit to it. They couldn't give me their all because, well, they had money coming in from football, even down at the 10th, 11th tier of the pyramid.
Let's say that it goes the other way then. Let's say that the player starts futsal starts at 16 or 18 after they've kind of built in and ingrained their habits of the game and technique and all that stuff. What do you ever have to relearn? Is there anything in futsal that if I came to it at 22, 23, what would be the biggest challenge moving the other way?
Yeah, it is tough. It happens a lot, and we need it to happen because we don't have natural born futsal players that come through futsal academies. So most teams, we need to give them a crash course and try and get them into the technique of playing futsal as quick as possible. You want to work on tactics, you want to work on the principles of the game, but they're coming into a training session straight from being footballers, and what do you focus on? It's tough because you can't spend too much time trying to get them all the techniques because they're years behind already. So yeah, the biggest challenges for the players, I think, is initially trying to use the sole of the foot, and that's the big one. That's the big difference you'll see. A football player will come in and they'll use the side of the foot. You need to try and get them off that habit quite quickly. But then the tactical side of it, you've got players that are used to being forwards, for example, and when the ball goes past them, they'll hang out front. They won't drop back. But futsal is totally different. If you let a player go past you, you're already down 4v3. So that sort of the team concepts of having all players defending at the same time, all players attacking together. Those sort of concepts are quite difficult to teach, certainly 22, 23-year-olds that have never played it before.
But isn't that amazing? Because we had Michael Scabala on as well, and he was talking about the challenges in transition. Yeah, you're down a player for 4 or 5 seconds, and that could be the difference between a goal. But where the perception of futsal is that it's a technical game, which would lead you to think that I'm not going to develop work rate, sprint, recovery sprints. But it's probably a 1v1 defensively, way more challenging or way more importance in 1v1 than it is in 11v11.
Yeah, totally. I think as a nation, and not just England, it was similar for me in Malta as well. We had players that struggled to get the concept of defending 1 against 1. They'd chase the ball. The ball would get passed. They'd go and double up and then leave their player free. And doing that a split second, you're down a player. So trying to get that across the players it's really quite tough. And I just don't think we do enough in terms of 1v1 defending. And I've never been a football coach, so I don't know what's been taught in academies or in grassroots clubs about one-on-one defending. But from what I've seen in futsal players, I don't think it's something we focus on yet.
Damon, sorry to interrupt you, but people are talking about like what's next for football. I would say there's a massive need that if teams want to progress, because the game is so fluid tactically now, that 1v1 defending, like for me, when I think of 1v1 defending in traditional coaching, it's I play you the ball 10 yards away and I've got a mini goal and you've got a mini goal and I try and beat you, but I'm probably an average attacker, so I'm not really challenging you and there's not really space. But in the context of the game, and especially in futsal, like I see more online content now that I'm shaking my head going, and the defending. And that's what I'm thinking about. Maybe that's the thing. Like maybe more concepts from futsal would actually help us expose players to those type of decisions out of possession.
Yeah, I think it would. Definitely. I think certainly almost always the first session I do when I start a new team or a new club is a one-on-one defending. I mean, it's obviously working on attacking as well, but my focus is on trying to get them to defend. Defend using the body, using their arms, getting down low. The basic stuff. Nothing magical, but trying to enforce that and trying to encourage that they need to look after their opponent, and if he does beat them with or without the ball, then how to react and how to sort of deal with that. Yeah, it's vital. It's like I said, it's usually the first thing I coach a new team with.
We'll talk about the differences in the cultures and the place you've been, but again, even just to skip some of that there, and we'll go back to it, but to talk about the Spanish and the Barcelona. I mean, what's their 1v1 defending like? Like, what separates them in that regard?
So, the coaching courses I did, and the general consensus is up until about 13, 14 years old, the kids should defend man-to-man. The team should defend man-to-man. There's no zonal. That doesn't come in until they get a bit older, so 13, 14. And yeah, the kids are used to that then. So then when they do transition into going zonal or mixed defense or individual defense with changes, then they've got the concepts, they've got the technique to defend 1v1, because they still need to do it. Even if you're zonal, you still need to know how to close your man down and defend that player in that moment. So yeah, and I've seen this in basketball as well. I follow quite a lot of basketball accounts on social media, and there's a few key accounts that they're really against zonal defending at youth level. For the citizens, we need to have the kids knowing how to defend 1v1 before transitioning to zonal.
Fascinating. Like, the more you think about it, the more it makes so much sense, doesn't it? Because so many, even unopposed, like we've got this thing against unopposed. Some people have this thing against unopposed training, but yet defensive unopposed, like back four shifting, one stepping, three dropping, happens all the time. But it's my thing over here is we've got this saying over here, and it does my head in: pressure, cover, balance. And I think two of those words are almost like cover and balance are defending in low blocks. And 1v1 defending, again, Bielsa got destroyed for his man-to-man marking, but at the same time, there's no hiding place from that. Yeah, I wonder at a youth level if a youth coach took those, again, an 11v11 coach took those concepts on at a younger age and said, all right, we're going to do this here. I wonder, as much as it was probably challenging to coach, how much it would set the players up for some form of success individually down the road.
Yeah, I've always thought if I did go over to football and start coaching an 11-a-side adult team, I'd want to go man-to-man.
Would you?
It's what I know, and
yeah,
I think it'd be a bit different. I think it'd be hard for the other team. Certainly, I wouldn't be playing Premier League level. I'd be coaching lower leagues or Sunday League or something, and I think it'd be quite a good tactic against players that maybe don't know how to play, or certainly won't know how to play how Pep Guardiola's teams play. Would they be able to deal with a man-to-man, full-on man-to-man system? I don't know. So yeah, I've always found that interesting. Like, what would I do in football? And I might get totally annihilated by it. I don't know, but it'd be interesting to see one day.
Hello, coaches. We'll take a quick break here. If you're a fan of the podcast, please check out the new book, Modern Soccer Coach Detail, where we take an in-depth look at some of the topics that we had covered throughout the podcast, how they all work together in an elite environment: psychology, science, tactics, training, culture, youth development, social media, and then leadership as well. How do they all work together? The podcast is at almost 2 million listens in the past couple of years. We've been fortunate to have some of the leading minds in the game on the podcast, on webinars, for interviews. So what better way to look back, reflect and review, put it all together in the book. The majority of work we do at Modern Soccer Coach is absolutely free for coaches around the world. So this is an opportunity for you to support Modern Soccer Coach if you like to, and also keep the content coming. We ship all over the world: US, Europe, Australia, UK. You can get your copy very, very quickly. modernsoccercoach.com/shop. Thank you for your support. I hope you enjoy the book. Timeouts was a concept that I didn't really know existed in futsal. I mean, how does that help you, or does it frustrate you because it slows the game down, or does it slow the game down?
It's good to have. You don't have to use it all the time. It's a skill knowing when to use it as well. And you know what I like really about a timeout is if the game's close and you're a goal behind or a goal ahead, you know, you can save that timeout for a corner in the last minute, call your boys in, set something up, and you know, maybe get a chance on goal or a goal. You know, and when those moments happen as a coach, it's the best feeling. You know, you call them in, set up a set piece, score a goal. It makes you look good. It's not the work you've done in that minute in the timeout. It's work you've done over weeks and weeks. The things I use a timeout for mostly is if we've had a bad start, conceded a couple of goals, it's always good to calm the players down. It's never a good one to use, but you know, you concede a couple of goals. I've made a mistake in the past of not using then a timeout, and then you concede again. So it's a good time to, you know, just steady the ship a bit if things aren't going well. Yeah, changing the tactics in the first 5 minutes of a game. You might see something that the other team's doing that you've not had a chance to scout, or they've done something different. So you need to change the instructions to the players. It could be simply asking the players where the space is now, or what are they doing different? What can we do different? Or like I said, for the set pieces, I think that's quite a good time to use it. Or simply just for giving them a rest. Sometimes, you know, you've had an intense half of the half, and you want to keep your players, your better players or your performing players on. So give them a timeout, give them that minute rest, and sometimes as well. And I find it fascinating watching the timeouts of the professional coaches in Spain. When you're watching a match, they get the cameras in and the audio in on all the timeouts, so it's really interesting to watch. And thankfully I know Spanish, so I can hear what they're saying. And it's really interesting to know what they're saying. And they a lot of the time they do really specific movements. They're not showing new movements to the players. They're reminding the players of things. Right, we've done this in training, so this concept's going to work. Start doing this more. Do this more. So it is just, I won't say giving them sort of fixed instructions, like you have to do this, unless it's kind of in the moment where you're going fly goalkeeper with an extra player, then it would be used to set up some almost set plays in open play. Timeouts, I don't think they slow the game down. I think they're great to have. Don't always use them. Sometimes it can be detrimental if the other teams, if the other teams use their timeout and we're on top, then it's not a good time to use it, because that could give the other team the opportunity to sort of steady their ship. So it's a skill and a good, a strategy of when to use them and how to use them. So I think they're a great addition to the sport. I don't know if it'd be good in football. I don't know. Maybe. I don't see why not.
Moving on to your journey, which there's some really interesting pieces that I wanted to ask you about. So I read that you're working at Darlington. You were offered 2 weeks to coach in Libya. The club wouldn't give you permission to go, but you went anyway, and the club went out of business very shortly afterwards. And I thought that was type of like, if ever football was summed up in one situation, that's kind of how the football world is. But that belief that it took to say, all right, well, I'm going to leave a professional football club and I'm going to do this anyway. Did you always have that like self-belief and that drive, or was that something that you've worked on?
I think when I started out in futsal, I saw this opportunity to get to the top, and that's where I want to get to. There's obviously been moments, like even now, moments where I've thought maybe I need to do something different. Maybe it's not what I want to do really, but so yeah. Normally, if there's an opportunity that comes up in futsal, then that comes over everything else. So I believe in following your passion, and when it comes down to decisions, I always say follow your heart, and it was an easy decision in the end. Like I had a full-time job at a football club. It wasn't coaching. It was I was community liaison officer, so I was trying to engage the fans and grow the fan base and grow attendances. That was my job at the club, and I enjoyed it. It was a really great experience working in Darlington FC, and I've got some good memories there. It was a club in trouble, and it had a series of owners, and it wasn't a club that it wasn't stable. It was struggling. So, I mean, I didn't expect it to go bust. We didn't see that coming, or I didn't see it coming anyway. So I got this offer to go to Libya. It wasn't coaching either. It was working on an international tournament as PR. So social media was just coming out then. They wanted to promote the tournament. So yeah, this opportunity to go and see international futsal and mingle with the top coaches in the world, and it was just too good to turn down in an exotic country, Libya, which unfortunately since then has been devastated by war. It was traveling, it was futsal, and I couldn't say no. So I spoke to my bosses at the club. I wasn't going to miss an awful lot. I think I was going to miss one match that I'd got cover for, and in the end they said, so you're going to have to take unauthorized leave. I was like, okay, well, I'll do that, and I'll deal with it when I get back. Mm-hmm. And I thought, what's the worst can happen? They can give me a warning or whatever. So yeah, I went. I had an amazing 2 weeks in Libya, getting to know some top futsal people and see some international futsal, and yeah, I came back, and within a week they made me redundant. The financial troubles the club was having meant they got rid of me. Obviously, I think because I went to Libya, they thought, right, let's get rid of him, which is fair enough. I've gone against their wishes. But yeah, I don't regret that at all. It was a nice job to have in Darlington. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. But I imagine if I'd have turned down going to Libya, and then a few months later the club goes bust, I'm out of a job. I haven't had that experience in Libya. Like, it'd have been a massive regret for me. So yeah, I followed my heart. I followed what felt right, and staying involved in futsal was always, and it always will be, the number one.
I think that belief or that attitude is. I see a lot of it the other way these days. Like, I see a lot of coaches, and I've been involved in staffing with either in consultation or directly involved about trying to get coaches into positions and try and do that. And there's some unbelievable opportunities, 5 times more stable and financially lucrative than that people have gone, well, do I have to get up an hour early, or do I have to? And I almost feel like today, where I had this with a coach a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, where I think our coach is more risk averse today because how clean and clinical coach education is, that we want everything in our pathway to be this here. Do you see that?
Yeah, and I speak to a lot of people like that want to know how I'm doing what I'm doing, and it's not easy. Like, I mean, I'm in a fortunate position or unfortunate, depending on how you see it. But I don't have a wife and kids. I don't have a mortgage. You know, I can up and leave and go and work in a different country without, you know, without too much hassle. You know, so it's a life choice I've made. Like I said, following my heart, following my passion is coming first. I think life's there to be lived, and yeah, okay. At some point, I'd love to settle down and have kids and what have you. But and then after that, I don't know. I don't know how that would work with doing what I want to do. It's a bridge I'll have to cross when I get to it. But yeah, I find it's in England a lot of people get involved in futsal, and they find it quite difficult, and they realise it's not going to make them a lot of money, and you know maybe they revert back to their job, and they can't really see it through. And I've seen a lot of people come and go because of that, because it's not easy. Coaching isn't easy. There's a lot of obstacles, there's a lot of difficulties in coaching, especially coaching abroad and going abroad away from friends and family. So yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it is. Maybe people don't want to take that risk anymore, and yeah, I don't know. But everyone's different. Everyone's got a different story. But certainly for me, I'll try and follow my passion, which is futsal and coaching, and trying to be one of the best coaches in the world in futsal. So
when you were starting to go on those, and obviously go on your trips and go on your journeys and go to different countries, without living in a country like England has a great football culture, but it doesn't have a great futsal culture. So where were you getting there? Who was mentoring you or guiding you, or were you getting that?
Spain was always a point of reference for me, as it is for everyone in the futsal world, I think. And you know, next weekend we've got the Spanish Cup in the south of Spain, and a lot of the futsal world will always go to Spain for the Spanish Cup. It's a huge event for certainly the whole of Spain. I'll go down there. There's coaching conferences. There's loads of networking. Loads of international people going to watch the games. Obviously, you've got the top 8 teams in Spain fighting for cups. So Spain's always been a reference point for me, and I was lucky enough in 2007 to play against Barcelona B. When I took Middlesbrough over to Portugal, and I met a coach there. He was the Barcelona B coach. Just asked him if it would be possible to go over and watch some training, and he said, "Yeah, no problem." So the next year I went over, saw some training with him. That's when I met. I managed to get into Barcelona first team training as a guest. One of the players invited me in, and managed to watch some sessions, and that's where I met Mark Carmona, who to this day has been my biggest mentor, my biggest influence on my career. He was the Barca coach. I think he won 17 titles in his 8 or 9 years at Barca, and you know he was always so welcoming and always so open with me. And you know I've brought him over to England a couple of times for some conferences over here to share his knowledge. And you know it's important to have someone to bounce ideas off, someone to learn from. You know, he's even helped me with corners. I sent him a video of a team. I said, "Oh, Mark, what could we? Have you got any corners that would work against this team's defense?" And yeah, he sent me a few, and just little things like that. He's always been so helpful with me. And actually, I had an issue in Malta with a player. It disrespected me at the end of one match, and then I had to make a decision: should I then leave him out the squad for the next match? He was one of my best players. Do I leave him out, or do I put him in? And this is when I spoke to Mark, and I said, "Mark, what would you do? What options do I have?" And he's like, "Well, on one hand, if you play him and you win, then fine, you've won, but do you lose a bit of respect in the dressing room? You drop him and you lose, then you risk losing your job because you've made a decision that's not helped the team. The best situation would be you drop him and you win, and then you've won the respect to the dressing room and you've won the match, and your decisions have been right, you know. So he gave me these options, and in the end, I dropped him. We lost. I look back on that and think, I mean, I left with sort of my values intact. Yeah, we lost the game, but at least I've not allowed a player to disrespect the coach, because I don't think that's on. Looking back, maybe I should have just put him on the bench, because in futsal you've got a squad of 12, so I left him out of the squad totally. Should I have just put him on the bench, and then maybe we could have used him or not played him, or I don't know. But
those situations are so, because I've been in those situations 20 times in my life, and I'd say 19 of them, just off the top of my head, have probably gone wrong, where I've done what you've done and said, I really need to win this match and do this, so it looks like great coaching, but it's not going to work out the way. And that's reality, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it's tough because we depend on results, you know. And what do you do? Do you lose face? Do you handle it a different way? Do you drop your values? I don't know. So yeah, it was a tough one, but Mark was there to sort of help me through it, and yeah, Spain's been my reference point, and you know, I've got so many friends in Barcelona and Spain as a whole that I could use as mentors, and I do use as mentors on a regular basis. So I'm going to Spain actually next, so I'll be going on Wednesday for the Spanish Cup, and then spend some time with some different teams and meeting some old friends, and you know, trying to get back into the futsal groove.
How did the move to Barca come up to live there? How did that come across?
So I told you in 2008 I was watching the Barcelona training. I met a few of the players, and one player in particular, Fernandao, he was learning English, so we had a bit of a conversation. I must have mentioned I was keen to come over and work in Spain, and later on, it was a few years later actually, it was like 2013, he wrote to me out of the blue saying, "Hey Damon, I've got an opportunity for you. Do you want to come over and coach in my club? I want to offer English coaching to the kids. You know, it's a different something different we can offer to grow the club." You know, so he retired. He was close to retiring, so he took over a little club and he got me over. So yeah, it just through networking and just through being, you know, wanting to learn and wanting to grow the game and develop futsal in my country, and you know, just showing that willingness to be humble and not thinking I know everything, and wanting to develop myself. Yeah, he's like, "Oh, come over to Spain. We'll give you a house, do some coaching in the academy, and be assistant with the first team." It was in like the 3rd division at the time, I think, or the 4th division maybe. And I was like, yeah, like the opportunity to go and live in Spain and surround myself with thousands of futsal people, it was just too good to turn down. And I lived there then for 3 years, worked with various clubs, learned so much, and it's always been in my mind to go back at some point.
Interesting. I mean, did you have grab the language before you came over, or was it something you just picked up as you went along?
I didn't know it very well, but I had a good reason to try and learn, because I'd met a Spanish girl. So, you know, it's to learn a language, you need a motivation, and you know, there's no better motivation than that to learn a language.
Yeah.
So I think I'd have learned it anyway, being in Spain, but it sped things up having someone to speak to every day and really want to learn for. So I did some not some lessons, but I did some podcasts. I listened to some Spanish podcasts. I read some books. I practiced every day. But then when I got to Spain and people started talking at me, because they were saying things, and I was like thinking, I thought I knew Spanish by then. I was like, no chance. But then within a few months, you know, it just started getting more natural to me, and yeah, that knowing Spanish now is one of, like, it's so important for me, because I'm going to a coaching conference next week at the Cup. I won't be able to do that if I didn't know Spanish, and you know, there's so many learning opportunities you miss out on by not knowing.
Was there anything football-wise that had the same experience where where you were thinking one thing and you got to Barcelona and you're like, oh, this is a different level, or this is a different direction, or what was the biggest area of impact?
So in Spain, the sports, it's in the culture. It's even if you're 45 and you're playing in a veterans team, you go training twice a week and you play in a league on a weekend. Whereas now, if in England it's like it's a five-a-side match on a Monday, can you play? Oh, not this week, I can't play. It's once a week. There's not that seriousness about sport, and even down to like 6, 7 years old, they have training twice a week and a match on a weekend. It's just ingrained in the culture that sport and leagues and competitions and a commitment to it is part of the life, and I love it there for that. It's you never have to worry that you're not going to have enough players for training, because once you've got your team together and they've committed for the season, they're at every session. Okay, you get times when players have to miss it because of an injury or illness or sometimes schoolwork, but I was coaching a team of under 14s, and it was in a professional club, and I think there was 1 or 2 sessions in the year where we didn't have enough players, and the rest, and we only had 12 players. We didn't have a group of 20 where we, at least 10 come. No, we had 12 players, and I think there was only 3 or 4 times when we had to go to the B team and ask their players to train with us, just to make it up to 10. And the commitment there in Spain is another thing. And I think that and the coach education, I think, and not just in futsal, in all sports, that's why Spain are world leaders in, they've been world champions in football, futsal, basketball, hockey, I think, but any tennis, but that's a bit different. I think it's not a team sport. So, but yeah, the commitment to sport in Spain, I think, is why they're so good. I remember doing a talk in York maybe 5 years ago, and my opening question was, why is Spain so good at football? And all the coaches there were futsal coaches, and they're like, oh, because of futsal. Went to the next slide, next question, why is Spain so good at futsal? Everyone's like, oh, well, we don't know. Next question, why is Spain so good at basketball? Oh, well, yeah, we don't know. And for me, the underlying thing, the thing that underpinned everything for Spain's success was the league structure, the competition structure, the commitment to training, plus the coach education. We're all there. I don't think Spain are good at football because of futsal. I think it helps a bit, but Spain aren't world champions at football because they're good at futsal. Because then why are they good at futsal? There's nothing. They're not good at futsal because they're world champions at 3v3 football. So where do you draw the line? But that was quite an interesting thing I learned in Spain, and so.
When you say their coach education, is it their attitude towards that, or the quality of it, or what is it that stands out?
So the big difference for me between an English coaching course and a Spanish coaching course, and England coaching's like well regarded throughout the world, so I've nothing against it, but this is just a difference I noticed. In Spain, they were teaching me they were teaching me the content to then to qualify through the course. Whereas in England, they were testing what I knew. There was a bit of teaching in the English courses, but I felt like in Spain it was more in depth. They actually gave you the knowledge. They were there to teach you, not to test you. And Spanish coaches are well regarded throughout the world, so we can't argue. I mean, English coaches are as well. But I mean, that said, in football, you look at the coaches that have gone abroad, like David Moyes, Gary Neville, myself, even. They've been laughed at because of the football knowledge. I think it's. I'm not too sure about David Moyes, but I know Gary Neville did get marked. No, I think it was David Moyes.
Definitely got that. Yeah,
he got criticised for his coaching methods and stuff. And is that a reflection of the English coaching education? I don't know. It seems to be making good strides in the futsal. We've got UEFA B now and whatever, but in futsal. So, but yeah, it was a big difference. In Spain, they taught you. it was like a degree. You know, the UEFA B was like first year of a degree. The UEFA A was like year 2, and I want to go back and do the third year eventually. You know, if I do go to Spain in the future, then I'll want to do that. But it seemed more like a degree. You got a lot of content, a lot of lessons, a lot more hours of tutor contact than what you get in than what I got in England. So I think that was a big difference.
Spain, Malaysia, Poland. What was the other one? Malta, and then obviously England. Like that's 5 different countries where elite futsal players and being around them and competing against them. I mean, what in your opinion separates the world, the creme de la creme of futsal? Is it the technique? Is it the decision making? Is it that athleticism? What is it?
There's not one thing, but there's one player that I've taken to a couple of clubs with me. He came to England for a little bit. I took him for a season in Malta. I would have taken him to Malaysia, but because of COVID, he didn't end up coming. And he was just something else. He was athletic. His decision making was unbelievable. He was a Uruguay international, and you could tell he was. I can't put my finger on it. Do we have similar players in England? We've got, there's not a big gap, but there's just something. There's something like all his attributes are just a little bit, and I think it comes from experience. Definitely from experience. Like he played futsal most of his life and played at a high level, played with good coaches, played with good players, played internationally. So, I wouldn't say it's even the techniques. I think English players are better technically than a lot of Spanish players, and you see that if I've seen an example where an under-12s team from England has gone to Spain and they've wiped the floor with the Spanish teams because technically we're better. But then as they get older and develop and they go through their pathway, get to that under-18s, the Spanish players have got more tactical knowledge, whereas the English players getting better technically, but now at that age, the tactics are sort of showing through. So I think it's hard. It's really hard to say what the difference is between what makes an elite player. I think it's the experience and playing hundreds and hundreds of matches growing up. I think that's probably the key in what separates the elite players from the amateur players.
Solomon Islands, the role as an analyst there recently. You mentioned that you did the World Cup with them. How was that experience?
No, that's the pinnacle of my career. When I started to be involved in a World Cup, to be involved in a Champions League, they were my goals. Obviously, I'd love to be involved in a World Cup with England. That would, and as a head coach, whether England or someone else, but that would be my ultimate dream. And I've got 40 odd years left, hopefully, so could still happen. That came about because I know the coach, I know the head coach, and I helped him organise their sort of pre-World Cup training camp. And we did it in Poland in the end. They were going to come to Malaysia when I was there because it was fairly close for them. And then they were going to go to Lithuania for the World Cup, but the World Cup got postponed. I was then in Poland for last season, this season, and the World Cup was in October, so they were looking for somewhere to do their training camp August, September. Poland with the COVID restrictions easing and things, it just worked out that them coming to Poland was sort of the best option. And I helped them organise their training camp for the month and a half in Poland, and once I was there, the head coach actually he couldn't make it for 2 weeks, so he said to me, Damon, would you do some coaching with them for the first 2 weeks before I get there? And man, just being asked suddenly to coach a World Cup team for a couple of weeks, like wow, it was amazing. And doing that and helping them out, then I was doing a bit of a match analysis because we had a couple of friendlies, and I like that sort of stuff, so I was doing that just off my own back. And then obviously they valued that, so they're like, do you want to come to the World Cup with us? And of course, like without a doubt, like it's as an English coach to go to a World Cup, it's a dream come true, you know. So just being in the right place at the right time and knowing the right people and doing the good work. I know they say it's who you know, not what you know. Is that right? Yeah, it's not what you know, it's who you know. But you know, you've got to back that up with quality work as well. So you know, they saw what I was doing firsthand, and you know, they wanted me to go with them, and you know, they saw me as a valuable part of the team.
Always finish up the podcast with like trying to get takeaways and advice for younger coaches that maybe want similar pathways. But something that you said there, and I want to add it to it, where it is like a lot of people complain online that they don't get jobs because such and such was mates with such and such. But there is an art or a skill to knowing people. Like for you, I see it clearly because in England, those natural avenues weren't there for you for futsal, so you've had to go out and earn your. And I know the Germans place an emphasis on their coach edgy network competence. They call it how to connect with people who can help you and you can help them. And you know, like that seems to be a big part of your journey. Has been as like your personality. Is that natural for you to walk into a room and you're going to this conference next week? Do you walk in and be like, "Hey, I'm Damon, nice to meet," or is it?
Yeah, certainly. Like in my early days in Spain, going into these rooms with the coaches, I stood out because I was the English guy on this coaching course. Like, and they were like, "What's going on here?" Like, and it got me noticed. The fact that I was going there and doing those things to further my knowledge, and they respected that. And you know, and a lot of good coaches reached out to me and you know wanted to help me and you know help me on my journey. So I'm I'm confident in that. You know, I've probably spoke to most of these people online at some point, so I'm always confident of starting up a conversation and you know getting to know the top coaches and you know seeing if I can help them, if they can help me, and you know building that relationship. I wouldn't say I'll go into a room and I'm like the centre of attention. Yeah. That's not me either. But you know, like next week I'm going over to this coaching conference and there'll be the Portugal coach, the world champion, the Euro world. Well, he's won the last 3 international tournaments, and you know we've had a few conversations before. So of course I'll be you know going to speak to him, and you know I've never had a problem speaking to people. And certainly if I can see an opportunity, then I like to you know try and use those networks, use those contacts to open up doors. But I think it's about being humble. I'm always open. I'm always open to. In fact, recently I've been thinking about dropping down to being an assistant coach, and you know, and going back and learning more again. And you know, I think if you're humble enough to do that, then people are sort of more welcoming. And you know, if you go in and you think you know everything, then people don't really want to talk to you. They'll no. But if you go in as a humble person, pretend you don't know anything, you want to learn, then most people will welcome you with open arms, like Mark Carmona did at Barcelona for me. And you know, I think that's the way to sort of to get the opportunities and you know use those networks, because it is important to know people. Otherwise, if you don't know anyone, then how are you going to get an opportunity?
The last one would be like and almost coming full circle where the game has risen dramatically in England and the UK and also in the States, where we've a lot of listeners in both of those areas. But I still think that, and you'd probably agree with me, I would say that the coach that wants to really do what you're doing and really put a focus on futsal is probably going to have to go and swim upstream for a majority of their early years. Like, what advice do you have for that coach?
Yeah, it took me 12 years to get my first sort of paid job.
12 years?
12 years to get a full-time paid job that, you know, within futsal. I was being paid part-time coaching in Spain, you know, but, you know, I started to do other jobs. and I got the opportunity in Libya for a few weeks. That was paid. When I was in Middlesbrough, I was coaching university teams and getting paid for that. But my first full-time coaching job, and it wasn't just coaching, it was club development as well. That came after 12 years of volunteering, going abroad, learning. And yeah, you need to, I think you need to be willing to start at the bottom and, help people out, go and get some experience coaching, go and be an assistant coach for an under-10s team or something in a country alongside a coach that can help you and teach you. And like I said before, I'm even now thinking about doing that again. I don't know, it depends what other opportunities come up, but if nothing else came up, I would go and be an assistant coach in a club, with a coach that I respect and know I could learn from. Maybe I'd have to pay my own way. Maybe I'd have to go abroad and pay my own rent and fund myself. But I think that's something that people need to do if they really want to get opportunities down the line. They need to go and sacrifice. Maybe it doesn't have to be years of your life, but it could be a few months. Go abroad and shadow someone, get to know people, and see some coaching in the places you think you might want to be. So I went to Spain because I thought I wanted to be in Spain. So yeah, I think that's important. Go find where you want to be. And I know there's a few lads in Brazil at the moment from New Zealand, I think it is, that they're over in Brazil now playing, coaching, and one day they might get an opportunity to go and coach back at those clubs in the future. So it is about just, I think, not being scared to just go and do it, go and make some contacts, and not expecting too much, not expecting to be paid for it straight away, because it's coaching. There's not many coaching paid jobs in the world.
Brilliant. Like when I started and I wanted to get you on, I wanted to talk about futsal. But when I started researching you and really digging into your journey, the more I saw that there's a hell of a lot in here for young coaches that are, maybe they're not emphasized enough, or maybe they're not values that we've gone away from. But in terms of like this single-mindedness, this confidence, the risk-taking, there's so much stuff to your journey that's really inspirational for young coaches. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I think you've got to take a risk, and if it doesn't work out, come back in a year and you're still young, you've still got the chance to do whatever it is you want to do, or whatever it is you need to do. But I think if you really want to be a coach, and if you're not playing at a professional level, then certainly in your 20s, it's a great time to go abroad and treat it. What an experience! Just find a country that you want to go to. Go and live there for as long as you can within the visa rules. Maybe it's 3 months or whatever. Go and go and have a great life experience. See some coaching, do some coaching, and whatever happens, you're going to be better off for it, whether you get a job out of it or not. But it's going to be a great experience. So I think that's something that young coaches should be willing to do. Certainly before you start getting tied down with mortgages, families and stuff. Certainly worth trying. And if it doesn't work out, then you've still got the rest of your life ahead of you.
Brilliant. Damon, I'm excited to see what's up next. And
me too.
I wish you all the best. Yeah, no, it's brilliant. It's great to hear from you, and love to get you on again in the future.
That's fine, Gary. Thanks.